Hari Bol, Namaste. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. So tonight is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 23. Shrimate Sira Swarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Mate Sira Swarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Sira Swarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namine Namo Sira Swarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namine Krishna Prastaya Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Nevasesha Kachare Satarine Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Devasesha Sunyavadi Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Devasesha Sunyavadi Askachari Shitarine Vachishi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Yasari Gopata Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajika Satara Sata Shishimad Jigakuru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajika Satara Sata Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Go Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakor Ki Jai. Nitai Goswami World Mission Ki Jai. Navadvita Dhamma Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Kira Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuradam Ki Jai. Mayapodam Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the Samal devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Samal devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Samal devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Amagyana Timarandasya Kanagana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militanyena Tajmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Statpitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantekam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raganatham Vitam Tam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakapa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavenbhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Go Bhaktarindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. For speaking, first to offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Jagakuru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada is the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya, who is very dear to Radha and Krishna. Offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are like wish-fulfilling trees, able to fulfill all the desires of the fallen living entities, and are full of compassion upon them. Haribol, namaste everyone. Thank you for watching now, or if you're watching later. So tonight we're up to chapter 5, text 23. And so this is the sort of kind of main theme of this sequence of verses is about one being liberated in this life. So the Jivan Mukta, the idea that one is liberated in this life. And so this sort of building on a section where, previous section of this chapter, chapter 5, where Krishna was, responding to Arjuna's question about whether one, he's confused, whether yoga, karma yoga, whether he should engage in action, karma yoga, or whether he should be engaging in renunciation or sannyas yoga, which Krishna then calls as Sankhya yoga. And then Krishna definitively says, well, look, these are basically the same thing. Right? Engaging in performing actions without attachment to the results, in other words, in a detached manner. This is the same result for someone who's, through the process of jnana yoga or knowledge or Sankhya analysis or sannyas renunciation. It's the same because they're also detached. Right? So the goal is that Krishna is describing in this section of Bhagavad Gita is detachment. That this detachment is what saves one from the worst kind of fear, which is the fear of descending into lower species, and it's also what liberates one. This idea of like Bhagavad Gita is very much, I think I might have discussed this last week, but it's like a mukti shastra, a liberation. The Upanishads are generally speaking about liberation, and Bhagavad Gita is also, to a large extent, about liberation. But of course, the real main essence of Bhagavad Gita is not just liberation in the sense of getting free from material bondage. It's about bhakti yoga, love for Krishna. This is actual, real spiritual realization and liberation. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. But so moving on from where Krishna is describing that karma yoga and Sankhya are the same, because they're both heading to this result in the same thing, detachment from this material world. And it's this detachment from the material, it's the attachment to the material world that keeps us bound up in it. The desire to enjoy this world, the desire for sense enjoyment. Essentially, material desires are what keep us bound to this world. They're like ropes, right? The senses are like, the desire for the objects of the senses is what keeps us bound to this world. To enjoy through the material senses, you have to have material senses, which means you have to have a body. So if we have desires to enjoy in this world, to enjoy the objects of the senses, well then that's creating future bodies, future lifetimes. So this whole idea of karma yoga and jnana yoga, sannyas yoga, the whole idea is about becoming detached from the objects of the senses, detached to the results of our activities. So, it's detachment. This is what frees us from the wheel of birth and death. But so, anyway, after talking about that, then and we should know, like in this chapter, and I've described this before, that Krishna he's not in this chapter, only in the very last verse in text 29, which we're a few weeks away from, several weeks away from, does Krishna come back to the idea that he's the Supreme Lord. That he's, he says in that verse, Bhaktaram Yagnatapasan Savaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Savabhutanam Nafamam Shantimrichite. That he is the beneficiary of all yagnas or sacrifices and tapasya, austerities, and that he is the friend of all the living entities, and that someone, I'll just read the verse. It's kind of funny, I know the Sanskrit, but I often struggle to remember the English. So a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and devas, the Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. Surida is the well-wishing friend. attains peace from the pangs of material miseries, natva mam shanti mrichate. So at the end of the chapter, Krishna makes clear that he's the Supreme Person, and that he's the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, and that a person who knows this, who's in this natva mam, so knowing me to be this, then attains peace or shanti, or liberation from the pangs of material miseries. So this verse, in one sense, almost comes from nowhere, right? It's like this chapter is very much discussing Brahma Nirvanam, in 3 verses coming up, starting next week from text 24 to 26. Krishna's talking about Brahma Nirvanam, liberation in Brahman. And then in the next 2 verses, he's talking about Astanga Yoga, pranayam. And then suddenly, Krishna then comes at the end of this chapter, again talking about himself. And so, in these early chapters, Krishna is only talking about himself as the Supreme Lord, and about having a relationship with him sporadically. It's not like the main theme. So in chapters 7 to 12, this becomes the main theme, the central theme of Bhagavad Gita. And sometimes it's described as being like, you have a sandwich, and you have the bread on top, and then you have the bread on the bottom, and in the middle is the good part, right? So the fixings. And so like chapters 7 to 12 are like the fixings, the best part of the sandwich, So and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur kind of made the comment that the karma section and the jnana section, chapters 1 to 6 and chapters 13 to 18, they're touched by the bhakti that's in the middle. And so even though it's karma yoga, the yoga of action, still it's really, sometimes it's described as karma bhakti mrishi. In other words, it's mixed. The karma is mixed with devotion to Krishna. And the jnana in chapters 13 to 18, or the first part of 18, is mixed with, the jnana is mixed with bhakti as well. And of course, bhakti yoga, it entails action, and it entails knowledge. Like to have bhakti or love for Krishna, one engages, or to develop love for Krishna, one engages in action. And when one attains love for Krishna, one's engaging in action. For example, the life of our spiritual master and the life of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, their lives are just full of action, preaching activity, projects. So engaging people in action with their physical bodies. Well, what we engage in with our physical body, of course, influences our subtle body, our mind and intelligence. So action is very important, but of course we also need knowledge. To have love for Krishna, well, you have to know who Krishna is, and you have to know who you are. You have to know, you have to have basic knowledge of spiritual life, who Krishna is, of Krishna's pastimes. As we have knowledge of Krishna's pastimes, and we contemplate upon and meditate upon Krishna's pastimes, and this is, this helps us to develop love for Krishna, because Krishna's pastimes, his leelas, his nama, rupa, guna, and leela, his name, his form, his qualities, and his pastimes are all attractive. Krishna is all attractive. And so the more we know about Krishna, then the more attracted we become to Krishna. So of course, knowledge is beneficial, in developing bhakti. And this process of sadhana bhakti, devotional service and practice. So here we are, we're hearing about Krishna, and we haven't developed pure love for Krishna. Our love is imperfect. Our love is innate. This love for Krishna is innate within us, but it's still covered over by ignorance, material ignorance, and ego, false ego, misunderstandings, etc. Like anathas. I think last week I talked about anathas in a little bit of depth, and I've given some classes on anathas in Healing Chant 108. It's quite a few years ago now. Yeah, there's so many videos in there you'll probably never find them. But anyway, in a series of classes I gave on the Sri Shisataka verses of Lord Chaitanya, the second verse, Lord Chaitanya is talking about how he has no attraction for the holy names, and this is due to of course Lord Chaitanya is expressing the mood of a devotee. So the devotee is feeling, I have no love or attraction for Krishna due to anathas, misunderstandings, offenses, weaknesses of the heart, and material desires. That's the four categories that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has analyzed anathas into in his work, the Bhajana Rahasyam. So, anyway, this is keeping us from Krishna. So in this stage of being a sadhana, a sadhaka, or in the stage of sadhana bhakti, where we're trying to develop our love for Krishna, so we don't have this pure love for Krishna. Right? This is the goal. But anyway, so while we're engaged in this sadhana bhakti process, we engage in devotional service, in practice. So we're going through the motions with our body, but in our hearts and mind, we may not yet be a lover of Krishna. So like keeping in mind, like what is the goal? What is this pure love for Krishna, right? So sometimes it can start to sound like a slogan. Oh, we say these things like, oh yeah, pure devotee or pure love for Krishna, and we're kind of, or speaking for myself, we miss the point of this. These aren't just empty words. Like, when we have a loving relationship with our spouse, or generally at least when we first get together with them, maybe it turns a bit bitter. Later on, maybe it doesn't if you're fortunate. But anyway, so initially there's this great sense of attraction. Or you have like teenagers, right? There's this puppy love. What's described as puppy love. And it's like when young kids, teenagers, for the first time become attracted to, a member of the opposite sex. And it's like this really intense feeling. And, it's called puppy love because people love puppies, right? You get like a puppy and you just love it. One of my family members, one of my children, got a puppy, and they'd wanted a dog. We used to have a black lab when they were growing up, black Labrador Retriever dog, and we had this puppy when we lived on Maui, and of course we had him for several years. But when we moved to Oahu, we couldn't bring him with us. In the house we could rent, they wouldn't let us keep a dog, so we had to give him up. And anyways, everyone was very sad about that. Great attraction to this dog. Shama was his name. He was black. And anyways, so when they grow up, she gets her own dog, her own puppy, and so she loved him to death, right? Sending us photos of him and always talking about him and whatever, right? So anyway, this love for a puppy. And so this translates when teenagers fall in love, they have puppy love. It's just like how we love a puppy. Well, they just love this other person. It's like this strong, overpowering feeling. They can barely think of anything else. They're just fixated. It's all they can think of. And it's kind of called puppy love because it doesn't last. Right? It's not mature. It's not deep. It's not based on really knowing the other person. It's just sort of like this experience this temporary experience. But anyway, my point is like love is like this real, tangible. You can feel like, oh, I can touch it. You can almost feel like you can touch it. It's like this. Sometimes it's like this, just overwhelming attraction. You know, I just want to be with this person. You know, there's some retreats. There's my recent retreat that the devotees very nicely organized here in Oahu. You know, there's some devotee couples, older couples, and they're just inseparable. The husband and the wife, they're just like, I mean, they're just always together. They're always sitting together, or they're eating meals together, or they're walking around together. It's like very rarely separated. When they're chanting, they're standing together, you know, next to each other. And, you know, so like there's this great bond, this feeling of love and attachment. So when we talk about love for Krishna, you know, that the realized devotee has and experiences, their love is for Krishna is so much stronger than that, what I'm describing there, you know, between people in this world. The relationship with Krishna is so real and strong, this, you know, loving relationship. It's not some dry philosophical thing. It's actual love for Krishna. You know, so in the stage of sadhana bhakti, we're trying to develop that, you know, through hearing, right? It all begins with hearing, shravanam, hearing, kirtanam, chanting, you know, speaking about the glories of Krishna, his nama, rupa, guna, and lila, his pastimes, hearing about how wonderful Krishna is, remembering his pastimes, smaranam, so meditation upon his pastimes. And then this is, you know, Prahlad Maharaj's description of the 9 stages of devotional service to his father, Hiranyakashipu. Anyway, I'm kind of getting a bit off point of what the main topic was here. How I got into that description there was really just sort of describing how in chapter 5, in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's not really talking about that. Chapters 7 to 12, it's all about Krishna as the Supreme Lord and about developing love for him and how his devotees relate to him, and we see how Arjuna is relating to him, and Krishna's describing how his devotees are so dear to him and how they experience great happiness and bliss talking about him and how he enlightens them, you know. So this is like, you know, the heart of Bhagavad Gita, particularly like what's known as the Chaito Shloki text, chapter 10, text 8 to 11. Anyway, so this is like that's the heart of Bhagavad Gita. So in this first 6 chapters, Krishna not talking about that very much. He does occasionally, we get glimpses into it. In chapter 2, there's a few verses. Chapter 3, there's some verses. Chapter 4, there's like at the beginning of the chapter, there's a lot of verses where Krishna's describing himself as the Supreme Person, and Arjuna is asking him about that. Chapter 5, there's only this verse at the end. Chapter 6, there's only, again, a verse right at the very end. Chapter 6, text 47. Where Krishna describes how the best yogi is the yogi who's, you know, fixed in his heart in devotion and love for Krishna. So anyway, so in this sequence of verses that we're studying right now, text 16 to 26, Krishna is describing about liberation, and so why I've made this whole point about it, how he's not really talking about devotion to himself. In these verses, Krishna is really talking about self-realization, atma-tattva, realization of my identity as spirit soul. And he's not describing, at this point, you know, the second parts of atma-tattva or self-realization, that I'm not the Supreme Person, I'm part minute, part and parcel of the Supreme Person, the dominated part and parcel. And most importantly, he's not talking about our function as servant of God, as lover of God. Krishna is not really talking about that at this point. So anyway, but Krishna is saying, in text 16, when one is enlightened by knowledge, and his knowledge reveals everything. Then he begins to describe that, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, in Brahman. So again, the term Brahman. Then one becomes cleansed of misgivings and proceeds straight on the path of liberation. And Krishna describes, well, what is a person like who's liberated then and has true knowledge? Then Krishna describes samatvam, equanimity, seeing equally. And, if a person's established in sameness and equanimity, how they've already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They're flawless like Brahman. So they're being equal in happiness and distress. This is text 20. And text 21 says, such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure or external objects, but is always in trance or yukta in yoga, enjoying the pleasure within. So this pleasure of self-realization, there's a glimpse we can attain into the reality that I'm spiritual in essence, I'm not this body. That everything I'm experiencing in this world is temporary, it's not me. And in fact, ultimately, according to the Sankhya philosophy, which Krishna was describing earlier, we have nothing to do with this body. Right? We're completely separate and distinct from it. And everything to do with this body is temporary. So we realize that, well, I'm not actually the doer. The modes of nature are the doer. The body is the doer, not me. I'm completely apart. I'm like a witness watching what's going on. The soul is, the soul is completely separate and apart from this gross material body. So, in that sense, then, we're not attracted. Being situated in transcendence, then we're not attracted to sense pleasure or external objects, and we're enjoying the pleasure within. And the verse we studied last week, an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So Krishna is describing how the liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure or to external objects. And Krishna is describing this attachment to material sense objects as a source of misery. And an intelligent person, I think the word Krishna used to describe this intelligent person was the Buddha, the Buddha. So Buddha is wisdom. And so the Buddha, so a person who's full of wisdom, he doesn't take part in the sources of misery, in other words, material sense enjoyment. And which are due in this misery, like attachment to the senses, is just the source of misery. And the wise person, the Buddha, understands that such pleasures have a beginning and an end. So why get involved in them? They're temporary. So then Krishna goes on to say, before giving up this present body, so speaking about liberation in this very lifetime, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and is happy in this world. So this idea of tolerating the urges of the material senses and checking the force of desire and anger. Actually, there's two ideas, right? That tolerating the urges, right? So the word, to jump into the Sanskrit here, so the the word is vegam, urge, or agitation, or impetus, shock, or momentum, onset, or the urges. Even one of the meanings of the word is orgasm. But so vegam. So in the one is able to tolerate, one who can, who's yukta, is able to tolerate, or sodam actually. So sakinoti, able to do, he's able, he can. Iha eva, in the present body, here or here on earth, in this very life, here in this world. Yaha, one who, sodam, you can tolerate, to bear or endure. Right, so one, prak, before, previously or former, sarira is the body or bodily frame. Vimokshanat, giving up, from liberation, from release. Kama, desire, love or greed. Krodha, anger, wrath or frustration. Udbhavam, generated from or originating. And vegam, urge, agitation, impetus, shock, momentum. So if, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger. So anyway, so these sodam is to tolerate, but vegam is the urges, of sense desire, right? Desire, kama, lust, and krodha, anger. So anyway, this word vegam in the Sri Upadeshamrita by Srila Rupa Goswami, the first text is Vako Vega Manasa Krodha Vegan Jiva Vega Mudaro Pashla Vegan Etan Vegan Yo Vishaheta Diraha Sava Mapimam Prithivim Sa Sishyat. So one is able to tolerate the urges of the senses, of the tongue, the genitals, the mind, and anger, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Srila Prabhupada gave, when I was first met Srila Prabhupada, he was in New Zealand, he gave a series of lectures on the nectar of instruction, the Sri Upadeshamrita. And this first verse is all about tolerating the urges of the senses, tolerating the urge of anger, tolerating the urge of the tongue and the belly and the genitals. So Srila Rupa Goswami, is saying one who can tolerate these urges is qualified to make disciples all over the world, sishyat, disciples. So this idea of Srila Rupa Goswami's, is coming from Bhagavad Gita, here where Krishna is directly saying that one who's able to tolerate vegam, the urges, the vegam, one who can tolerate sodam, one who can tolerate the urges of the senses, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. And then Krishna is talking about kama, desire or love, greed, and krodha, anger, wrath, and frustration. So again, this is a common topic. It's not a main topic, but it comes up again and again where Krishna talks about kama and krodha, anger. So in chapter 2, Krishna first brings it up in in text 62, Krishna says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material world, material pool. But a person free from all attachment and aversion. So again, this idea of or the words here are raga dvesa, but free from the attachment and aversion, and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, can attain the complete mercy of the Lord. Prasada marigachate. So here, at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is describing, here he's describing the symptoms of one who is a pratistha, one who's firmly situated in prajna pratistha, one who's situated in knowledge. Right? He then describes to Arjuna how lust and anger or desire, kama and krodha and anger, how this keeps one bound to this world, and one falls down into the material pool, but one who can control it can attain the complete mercy of the Supreme Lord. Then in the third chapter, Krishna again, in answering one of Arjuna's questions, Arjuna asks a question, what is it that impels one to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And Krishna responds, Kama esha krodha esha. It is lust only, Arjuna. Lust and wrath. Lust only, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath or anger, frustration, is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Then Krishna goes on to describe lust again, lust and anger, and how bad this is, how deleterious it is for one engaged in spiritual life, trying to engage in spiritual life. Right? This this lust is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world. And then through them lust, the senses, mind, and intelligence are the sitting places of these lusts. Through them lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, O Arjuna, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So it's like Krishna is describing the dangers of this kama and krodha, lust and anger. In the fourth chapter, Krishna again brings it up in text 10, saying that one who knows, or 9 and 10, one who knows the transcendental nature of his appearance and activities doesn't take his birth again in this material world, again becomes liberated, being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So this is, this is the first place where Krishna is directly tying developing love for him to being free from attachment, fear, and anger. And of course, so now Krishna is bringing it up again in this text 23, but he again brings it up, at length in chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is talking about people with the demoniac mentality. And there he says that there are three pathways to hell, and these. Oops, I've got books falling over here. In chapter 16, text. Just take me a moment to find it. Text 21. Trividam narakshayedam dwaram nasanam matmanaha kama krodhas tata lobhas. There are three gates leading to this hell. Krishna's been describing, how those who are sinful attain repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, in other words, lower species. There are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So this is, this is a common theme, or an important theme or idea in Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna's regularly in several places that I just described, where Krishna is describing the dangers of lust and anger. So but he's not just talking about lust in the terms of sexual lust or like overwhelming lust. Krishna is really speaking about just material desire. Of course, the stronger that lust is, the more, or the stronger that karma is, that desire for material sense enjoyment, so that it leads a person to engage in sinful activities, then of course the more dangerous and damaging it is. But anyway, so this is an important theme in Bhagavad Gita, the importance of tolerating and checking. So as Krishna says here, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and happy in this world. Sukhi, happy, fortunate. Yukta, in trance or discipline, fixed in yoga, steadfast in yoga, is a yogi. Saha, he is sukhi, happy, fortunate. So this happiness Krishna is speaking of here is not material happiness. It's as I mentioned in text 29, the final verse of this chapter, Krishna talks about shanti. So this shanti is the peace of liberation. This or peace that one has when one has love for Krishna. Peacefulness, shanti. So no fear, right? Sometimes people have this T-shirt or slogan on a shirt, right? No fear. So this no fear is shanti or peacefulness. And actually in chapter 18, text 66, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, just surrender unto me, abandon all varieties of dharma or religion, and just surrender unto me, I shall protect you from those sinful reactions, which of course Arjuna is so worried about sinful reactions, he's going to kill all his relatives, right? He's kind of worried about all the adverse consequences that are going to come from that. But then Krishna says, Masuchaha, do not worry. Don't worry. Hey man, no worries. No worries. Just take shelter in Krishna. So Krishna is describing in this text 23 how one can be sukhi, happy, through tolerating the urges of the senses and controlling the forces of lust and anger. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Haribo, namaste, Krishna. Thank you so much. Krishna, Krishna.